The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to go over some things to think about as far as liability in your service business and liability as a pool owner as well. So I'll cover some basics to prevent liability if you have a backyard pool, and some basic strategies to prevent liability or claims against you if you have a pool service company. Pool Service Pro, open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. So I'm obviously not an attorney, nor do I sell insurance of any kind. However, I do have a lot of experience in the industry, and I've seen many liability claims and things that led to liability over the years out there in my service route. So I can go over some details and some things that you need to know about liability as a pool owner. I'll start with that first because I think that's the important aspect, and that's where a lot of claims will come in as the pool owner yourself. Now here in California, we do have strict guidelines when a pool is constructed. There are certain things that need to be done to make sure the pool is safe. So the side door going out from the garage should have a self-closing spring. Your gate, the latch should be on the opposite end so you can lock it from the outside and not the inside. So the gate to the backyard needs to have the hardware switched so that it's front facing and you can lock the gate from the outside. And you also need to have alarms on sliding glass doors. This is pretty standard. Most people will disable the alarms after the pool passes the inspection because there's a lot of false alarms, and every time they open the slider, an alarm goes off. But that's up to the homeowner to do that if they want to. The code states that it has to have an audible alarm on the sliding glass door. But again, that's of course the option of the homeowner afterwards of what happens. A lot of homeowners also reverse the hardware back on the gate, which I don't recommend. The gate also has to be self-latching, so there should be a spring on there. And those are the kind of procedures to get your pool past inspection. Beyond that, I think you also have to be cognizant of the safety of your guests when you're having a pool party. It's one of those things where people don't usually hire a lifeguard for a backyard pool party, so there is liability there. You should have a maximum liability insurance policy on your homeowner's policy, so that should be maxed out to the fullest. And I would also recommend a umbrella insurance policy above that for at least $1 million. $2 million is probably better. It'll cost you $400 or $500 a year, but this umbrella policy will cover anything above and beyond your homeowner's insurance policy. If there's a claim against you, then if it goes over a certain amount and your homeowner's insurance won't pay that claim, the umbrella insurance will fill that gap. And it also extends to your auto insurance as well. So it covers you for other liabilities besides the pool. I think having a safety fence installed if you have young children and having an automatic cover if that's possible is a great safety mechanism as well. But really there's not much that can prevent accidents except vigilance. Now they have a lot of cameras that you can put out there that detect motion. These are pretty good. They work actually really well. And the one that I reviewed is called the Swam Cam, and it's really good. It works really well. You put it by the fence and point it towards the pool, and it has AI that can detect, someone crawling towards the pool or someone walking, some small child walking towards the pool. It'll pick up. And the AI should distinguish pets from that also. And speaking of pets, unfortunately, I've had several dogs drown on my pool route. Now, a lot of the times, these were small dogs that couldn't get to the step area and get out. Other times, it was older dogs that fell in the pool and unfortunately drowned in the pool. So if you do have a dog that could drown in that pool or has no way of getting out of that pool, you may want to put a mesh fence around the pool and keep the pets out of that area, because tragically it does happen. I even had a homeowner that had an above ground spa. They left the cover open and a dog went up the steps. It was like on a deck area and the spa was accessible from the top, and the dog fell into the spa and drowned. So it's really important to keep your pets safe and prevent them from drowning by blocking blocking their access to the pool if possible. Let me flip this now to the pool service side of things, and I really recommend you get liability insurance for your business. There's several good companies out there. I like using SPPA or SPA. You can get your policy at thesppa.com. Again, that's thesppa.com. I don't have a true partnership with them. At one point, they were giving my group members 10% off their insurance coverage every month, but that went away when the rates went up. So there's really not much of a partnership with them, but I do like that company, and I think they are probably one of the best liability insurance companies. They insure, I think, almost every state except New York. I think there's one more state somewhere they don't insure, but they insure just about every state. And this protects you up to $1 million per occurrence. And I think you would want to get a larger policy if you are kind of paranoid, and if you do commercial pools, they want to protect you up to $2 million per occurrence. And these are really handy to have because they will protect you from claims above and beyond what you can sustain and ever pay off. Now, God forbid you ever have a claim, but I do have a close friend in the industry that did have a claim against him. The child had fallen in the pool. The gate was supposedly left open by one of his employees, and thankfully the child survived, but there was some brain damage because the child was in the pool for a period of time, and they sued him for $1 million. And he had, of course, liability insurance, and no one wants, of course, to have $1 million claim against them, but they paid that claim for him and pretty much saved him financially. This was about 15 years ago, and this would definitely have destroyed him financially, having to pay $1 million debt. And so this is something to consider. This is like the worst case scenario. There are other scenarios that are a little less than worst case. There's been equipment fires. There's also been water left on by the pool service provider or the employee, flooding the house, causing $50,000 in damage, which of course you don't want to pay because that's why you have liability insurance. Not that you want to be making claim after claim, but it does protect you from liability, from mistakes that you make out there or oversights. Now, one good way to prevent any kind of liability is to really be on your game out there. And this is something that, sounds counterintuitive and circular logic, but if you're very aware of liability issues, you'll do whatever you can to prevent those. For example, if you are at a pool and there's a mesh safety gate, you want to make sure that it closes and that you pull on the gate to make sure that it's fully latched. If there's an automatic pool cover, you want to make sure that you cover that, turn the key, close that cover every time you're at the service account. Even if the customer says they're going to use the pool in an hour, still cover that to protect yourself from liability. If you're closing a gate to the backyard, make sure it latches by pulling on the gate to make sure that it doesn't open up. If you're doing any kind of equipment repair, make sure you turn the breaker off and not just the time clock, or put it in service mode. Now, I had one of my guys that's really cognizant of this. He had a small business before, a brick and mortar business, and he was really paranoid about liability. So he was someone that wouldn't make these kind of mistakes, you would think. But he was cleaning a filter, noticed that the grids were bad, and so he left it apart, and he went to go buy the grids. Now, granted, it was 100 degrees out, and it was in the middle of the day, and the sun was beating down on him. So he took the grids out. He was going to go to the supplier to get the replacement grids, and he forgot to turn the breaker off. And again, this is someone who's seasoned. He's in his 60s, and he's had businesses before. And what happened was the pump came on. The filter, of course, had the lid off, and water gushed out all over the backyard and all over the deck. And, it was running for, who knows, maybe an hour or so till he got back to the account with the new grids. Some damage there. I don't think he made a claim. He just paid the customer for the damage out of pocket. And he called me on it, and he said, I'm going to say that this probably shouldn't have happened, and I'm the last person I would ever think would do this. I'm glad I have liability insurance, he said. I didn't use it because it didn't flood the house or anything. But this is just goes to show you that even the most seasoned, the most veteran person can make a mental mistake and cause a liability issue. So having the insurance is really a no-brainer. it's only going to cost you $80 a month, and it's something that's going to protect you against claims anywhere from whatever you can afford. I mean, if there's a small claim, you may want not to pay the deductible and just pay the customer for the damage. But if there's something of $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $1 million, the insurance will protect you to that point. Another thing that happened to one of my service members of my group is that he was backing into a driveway, which I don't recommend you ever do, back into a customer's driveway, by the way. I prefer parking on the street because there's some liability with you being on their driveway, and you don't want to back up your vehicle anywhere near their garage. But he was backing up his truck, and he had his pole sticking out, and the pole went right through the garage panel and broke it. Now, this was not a cheap garage. This is one of those really expensive garages, thousands of dollars for it. Now, he could have made a claim, but he didn't. He basically just paid the customer for the new garage door because his pole went right through one of the panels. And if you know anything about these garage doors, you can't just replace one of the panels. You have to replace the whole garage door. Basically, I've been trying to get panels replaced for years on different garage doors, and they always tell me the same thing. Well, you can't do that. The panels won't match. You have to get a whole door. And that's probably the truth. And no one sells the actual individual panels. The whole thing is they want you to buy a whole new door. Now, he didn't make a claim either, but it was a few $1,000s, and that was him not being careful. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is you should have set rules like, okay, I'm not going to back in the customer's driveway. I'm going to avoid parking in driveways unless I absolutely have to. If there's no street parking, I'll park in the customer's driveway. But I've had customers come out and say, hey, you were in my driveway and you spilled this there. And I look at the driveway and I'm like, I didn't spill anything, but it could have been someone else, but they're blaming me for it. So whether something does happen or not, you're in their driveway and they can blame you for something coming out of your vehicle that's not your vehicle. Of course, if your truck leaks oil, definitely don't park in the driveway. But in most cases, you want to avoid liability because not only can you make a mistake, like the examples I gave you, but you can be accused of doing something you didn't do, like spilling something in the driveway, breaking something at the pool equipment, leaving the water on. I've been accused of this before where the customer was on vacation. I did the pool. I rarely turn on the pool water, if ever. The only time I fill the pool is if there's a vacant real estate house I'm taking care of and there's no one there to fill it. I'll turn the water on. But if I do turn the water on, I'll put my truck keys on top of the fill line so that when I get back to my truck, which I've done before, and I'm like, hey, where's my keys? Oh yeah, I have the water filling. And therefore, you're not going to make that mistake. But one thing to avoid with liability with yourself and employees is to make sure that they never leave the water on. I just had a member call me last week about a situation where the employee left the water on. The customer was on vacation for a week and the water was running for like 4 or 5 days. This was in Texas, so the water bill was pretty high, but don't think there was any damage. And it's going to cost, of course, to pay that water bill for the customer. But that could have been avoided by simply making a policy that no one turns on the pool fill water, and absolutely at no time do you do this. Now, one good thing about liability insurance is that if someone accuses you of doing this and leaving the water on when you didn't do it and it causes property damage, which is the case against me, it's one of those things where it's like your word against theirs, and the liability insurance will be there to pay a large claim if someone accuses you of doing something you did not do. Just like auto insurance, if you're at a red light and someone backs up into you to get a claim, which happens in California, if you're not paying attention, if you're texting, the person in front of you might be smart enough to put the car in reverse and hit you, and then they'll say that you went forward and hit them. Very, very common claim in California. And it's one of those things where your insurance company will fight that particular person or other insurance company and try to get a no-fault claim because you tell them that, hey, I didn't hit them, they backed up into me at the red light. And that's why insurance is important, because not only will it protect you from your mistakes and oversights, but it will protect you from someone saying you did something that you did not do. Back to the homeowner for a second, and this is a true case of what happened. So one of the things you want to do for your equipment area is keep it clear of any debris, dry brush, and make sure that if there is a fire, it's not going to cause a forest fire, basically. But there was this pool where the equipment was located in a kind of grassy, weedy area off to the back of the property, and the gardener wasn't doing a very good job of keeping the weeds down, obviously. And so there was a lot of dead weeds around the equipment. And it so happens that it had a triple failure. It was an old electrical panel, and the pump, it was a Jandy pump, overheated. And normally when that happens, the capacitor will shut down the motor, but the capacitor did not click off, and the sub-panel breaker did not shut off either, and the main panel breaker did not shut off as well. So this triple failure caused the motor to get hotter and hotter, and it actually burst into flames and started burning the bush around the equipment area. And luckily there was a homeowner in the house adjoining it in the backyard that saw this fire starting, and he quickly took his garden hose over the fence and put it out, called the fire department. But if he was not out there in his backyard watering, who knows how bad that fire would have been. The brush was already catching, I don't know why I'm saying bush, but brush was catching on fire around the equipment. It burned all the plumbing. Of course, it burned everything up except the filter. The filter tank, for some reason, survived, but everything around the pump, including the heater casing, caught on fire and burned up, and basically the whole equipment pad had to be replaced. But when the insurance adjuster came out, he pointed out the liability issue for the customer, saying you had really old electrical panel in the house that you should have upgraded years ago. In other words, all of this is going against the homeowner to get actually the claim paid, because what the insurance company will ultimately try to do is say that there is some underlying issue and you can't make the claim. And besides that, if you're going to claim something against your homeowner's insurance, they're going to raise your rates and they may even cancel you. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it at that point. What I'm saying here is you want to avoid any kind of claim that could be catastrophic, like a fire like this. If they would have cleared all the dead weeds around the equipment pad and kept it clean, I would say even putting a brick wall around the equipment back there would have been good, and making sure that maybe there's some gravel. Even if there was a fire, the motor caught on fire, it wouldn't have nowhere to spread to, because if it's just an equipment area and there's gravel and the motor catches on fire. And by the way, I've seen motors catch on fire before. I've turned on a pool before, and flames shooting out of the back of the motor is definitely scary, but it didn't catch anything on fire at that point because it was all cement. And I can see where this could be a liability issue. So you want to create a backyard environment where there are no liability issues. One thing that in California will get your homeowner's insurance canceled is any kind of diving board. Diving boards are a huge liability. And if you have one in an older pool, I suggest cutting it out, cutting the bolts down on the deck and getting rid of it, because many people have been injured on diving boards. Now, not just diving in the pool and hitting their heads on the bottom, but diving boards snapping in half. And I've seen this on my route as well. I had an old pool that had a diving board. They had a party. They had a bunch of grandkids over. And when I got to the pool that next week, I saw the diving board split, and it was like broken and protruding. The actual base was protruding into the fiberglass diving board. And I asked the customer what happened. He said his grandson was bouncing to do a spectacular flip dive, and it snapped, and he fell. Luckily he fell into the pool without getting hurt. But other times I've heard of that happening, and the person falling on a cement and getting hurt pretty badly. So not only is there a liability for actually hitting your head in the bottom of the pool, but there's liability of the diving board snapping and causing damage or injury. Pool slides are another thing that will probably get your home insurance canceled. They're dangerous as well because people do crazy things on them. You can fall from the top of the pool slide, your feet are wet, everything's slippery. So those are also a liability issue. Anything like that would be, I consider, a liability. And you want to remove anything around the pool that would be a liability. Now, one last one back to the pool service provider. This is a true incident as well. When I first started out, I was doing commercial pools for a company. They had another person doing their other batch of commercial pools. Younger kid. He actually left a gallon of muriatic acid with the lid off at the pool deck by accident. And of course, the management company called. They were really upset and panicking. And I was thinking, this incident would happen many, many years ago, but it stuck with me because I thought, the kids could have poured it. They could have touched it. They could have even poured it in the cups and drank it. Who knows what they could have done. It's a huge liability issue, leaving any kind of chemical out for a child to access. And it's also a problem in backyards. Make sure the tablet buckets are closed. Any chemicals they leave there, make sure they're out of reach of children, because kids invariably will get into things and mess with things. I wouldn't recommend leaving muriatic acid at a customer's house, nor, of course, in this case, leaving a gallon of it with the lid off on the deck at a commercial pool. Who knows what he was thinking or what happened, but that's a huge liability issue. I think the bottom line is analyze everything in your backyard, analyze everything in your service company, have rules in place to prevent liability. Don't fill the pool, don't leave chemicals out, don't leave anything in the backyard that a customer can get hurt with, and the same with the pool owner. Don't have anything around your pool that will cause liability, and make sure that if you do have those self-latching gates that they're working, and if you need to put a mesh gate in to protect children or animals from getting into the pool, I suggest investing in that and doing that right away. And the key thing is to have the right insurance. And again, the SPPA.com is a great place to get your general liability insurance. And you should have a policy in place that's current and that's going to protect you from major liabilities, from errors and omissions by yourself, or when someone claims something against you. If you're looking for other podcasts I've recorded, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. Just click on the podcast icon on the banner, and then a drop-down banner will appear for you. A drop-down menu will appear for you at 1,500 podcasts. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I offer, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week. God bless. Real quick, if you're not using pool service software, try Skimmer free for 30 days at getskimmer.com/poolguy. Again, that's getskimmer.com/poolguy. Skimmer, everything you need to run your pool service business all in one app. Pool Service Pro, open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro.